It's winter, and while the Boxster's quite happy to play in the rain and the mud, this owner at least would be a little happier if it was tucked up in bed. So in this video I'm going to show you how I prepare and then store my car for the winter months, and why a little bit of extra preparation and forethought now will mean your car will be in the best possible condition come the spring. Welcome to Project 981 and welcome back to the channel. Now winter's definitely arrived in the UK, which means the days are shorter, the weather, unlike today, generally a little bit wetter, the road's definitely muddy and grimy. And while these cars can take year-round driving, I'm probably a little happy if mine was tucked up in bed for a few weeks, so that's what I'm doing today. I'm going to walk you through how I prepare and then store the car, and hopefully share a few hints and tips with you that might make it easier for you to do your car as well. Now, my key theme is a little bit of preparation now pays dividends in the spring, so that most of what I'm going to do today will make my life easier in 4 or 5 weeks time when the car comes back out. I'm lucky enough to have a garage, and I appreciate that storing cars over the winter outside is far harder. Do jump in the comments after you watch the video if you have to do that yourself, and share your little hints and tips, anything it's worth sharing with other viewers if outside storage is your thing. Otherwise, it's garage time for the Boxster. Plenty of things to do. A bit of crack on. Right, well, it probably doesn't need saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. The reason for washing the car is, well, to be honest, the main reason is because it's no fun getting a dirty car out of the garage at the end of the winter. But of course, if you're going to store a car covered in mud, you might be trapping moisture in there as well. And I'm going to use a car cover, and there's no point in putting a car cover on a dirty car because that just leads to a whole world of pain and scratches. So if you have the opportunity to wash your car before you put it away, do. I did it a few days ago. It's now dried out, so the car is good and dry as well, which helps because the next stage is a bit of a hoover for the roof, a bit of a quick hoover to get the worst of the dust and mud out from the interior. Again, as you probably spotted by now, I like things to be clean and tidy, so clean and tidy time. Right, so that's the interior cleaned and hoovered. I'm going to do tyres next, but actually, well, since we're here, let's have a quick look at the lovely GTS interior. I do rather like it, and yeah, the objective of giving it a quick clean is, well, not to do a deep clean, it's just to make sure it's got the worst of the dirt out for the winter, so you're not coming back, as I say, to a dirty car. Just wipe the pedals as well, always worth doing. So back to tyres. Now, I'm not going to drive my car for 5 or 6 weeks, so I'm going to put a little bit of extra air in the tyres to just support them, because the car will be sat on the same spot once it's in the garage. They generally run at 33 psi. I'll probably try and pump them up to about 40, but anything more than normal is better than leaving them at their normal pressure, so I shall do that next. Since we're here, well, I probably should buy myself an electric compressor for this, but I use my track pump for my bike, which puts a decent amount of air in on each stroke. I've just got a digital gauge, and you'll have your own version of this just to check those pressures at the end. Not critical to reach a certain pressure for winter storage, just putting more air in is good news. So let's put some more air in. And yes, it's not lost on me that I've just made you watch a short video of a man pumping up the tyres on his car. YouTube's fun, isn't it? So the next thing I do is take the wiper blades off. Now this isn't critical, but actually if you leave the blades on the glass in the same position for a long time, the rubber can sit in the wrong position, and that might degrade its performance. I just pop them off, takes 2 seconds. I then put on the end of the arms a little bit of pipe lagging, which I've just stuck together with an elastic band. That stops the metal end, the hook, which is that bit, the piece under there, from damaging the glass. And if it does mean that the arms come up and snap back down, there's less chance of them cracking the glass, which does happen. So wiper blades next. These really are wonderfully easy these days. It'll push and off they slide. There we go. Slide on that little bit of foam, drag it over the ends, there we go, spin it round, and that should do the job and prevent them from damaging the glass. That's one. Let's just do the other one, push that in, pop it out. Let's get this on. There we go, and that really is simple as that. And then all I need to do is put them back on when the car comes out. Lovely jubbly. One quick and easy thing to do, a nice little job prior to putting the car away, is to check the radiators for leaves and dirt and all the usual. And it's a bit hard to get the camera in there, but I will be putting my hands in very shortly, and maybe even the hoover, just to get the worst of it out. What we're trying to do here is avoid piles of wet leaves and detritus which get caught, actually it's easier to show on this side, get caught up in there, right in the corner. They then rot down, hold on to moisture and start to corrode the air conditioning condensers, which I think are in front of the radiator grills, and those can then lead to those leaking, which is expensive, so worth getting that out now. Right, so I've just stuck the vacuum in the radiator grills and sucked out a little bit of dirt, some straw from the harvest, so that's all good. Next tip is to get down and have a look underneath the car. I find it easy to do it while the car's out of the garage, just to see if anything's literally hanging off the car, stuff that really ought not to be where it is. And you're not looking to sort of do a workshop inspection at this point, just to make sure there's nothing obvious. Oh, let's not worry about that too much. And actually mine looks pretty good. Now I actually had the sills off my car to do the drain plugs. You can watch that video separately if you like. I can see there's a missing plug already. That's boring, isn't it? That little hole should have a plastic thing in it like that. So I can already see by virtue of doing this that I need to order a couple of those. I think there's one missing down the front too, ready for the spring. Otherwise everything looks like it's in the correct place, so that's good. Now one more thing I like to do is actually just make sure there's nothing in the glove box or the cubby that shouldn't stay in there for several weeks on end without me knowing about it. If you store food or snacks in there, that would be a good time to get it out. I'm actually also going to take out the iPod. I have a little iPod in here which I play my tunes on, but actually if the power is off for the car, that is going to run out of battery, so taking it out means it's just not getting tired on the battery. Otherwise that's fine, nothing in there that I need to worry about. I don't think there's anything in here. No, so that's all done. So in essence, make sure there's nothing left in the glove box or the cubby that shouldn't be in there, and take it out. So if you're enjoying this video, now would be a great time to give it a like. And if you want to see more from me in the Boxster in 2025, do consider subscribing to the channel as well. Thanks very much. Right, so I've done my tyres, done the wipers, given the hood a hoover, the interior's had a vacuum, I've emptied the glove box and the cuddy. I think we're pretty much ready to get the car in the garage now. I'm going to try and do a semi-cold start and get it stuck inside, and the last few jobs to do once the car's in the garage. Let's have a go and see if I can do this in one take. we are in. So engine off, leaving the handbrake off, but the car, which is a manual, in gear. Okay, so we are parked up. The car is in the garage, which is good news. Now, the first thing to just say again, as you've just heard me say, is I have deliberately not put the parking brake on, so there's no little light on there. That means the calipers on the rear wheels are not stuck onto, or the pads I should say, not stuck onto the rear discs, the rotors. So we're trying to leave the brakes off, front and rear. Obviously the parking brake is on the rear, so that's not on. But to secure the car, stop it rolling away, or just rolling if it's nudged. My car's a manual, so that's in gear. If you've got PDK, put it in park. Fairly straightforward. What we're trying to do is just avoid those disc pads being in contact with the rotors for a prolonged period. It's also worth talking about fuel. Now I've got, well, the range is less important than the quantity of fuel in the tank. You can see there just over half. There's different schools of thought here about how much fuel you should leave in a car when you're storing it. I understand that there's some pumps and sensors at the bottom of the tank which like to have a bit of fuel covering them, so they're immersed, so that's fine. The more air that's in the tank, the more moisture's in there as well, and we know that moisture and fuel isn't brilliant, but actually these days tanks don't really suffer from corrosion. So your mileage may vary. I've got about half, just over half a tank of fuel. The qualities of the fuel, the petrol, the gasoline, will degrade with a bit of time, but in all honesty 6 weeks or so is not going to make a huge difference, nor be the end of the world. So I'm not going to worry about that. It's enough, and it'll be soon enough that the car's back out of the garage. We've got a fresh tank of fuel in there and everything, we're back to normal. So just be aware of how much fuel is in your tank. Take care to leave your parking brake off. Okay, so the car's now in the garage. We've got it secured. The car is in gear, the handbrake is off. So let's talk about batteries next. It's a conversation that can get quite heated on the forums. Now I've got my own system. It's based largely on having read the manual and a little bit of advice. But battery is obviously in the front of the car on the Boxster. So I've taken the cover off, we can see that. Now, the key thing you need to know if you have a 981 is BMS, Battery Management System. It doesn't particularly matter how you get your battery charged while the car's stored, but as long as the car can tell that the battery is connected and is charging, that's the main thing. And that's because the car has an ECU module, the BMS, the Battery Management System, that detects the draw and the load and the state of the battery voltage and moderates and modifies things accordingly. We're going to leave the car for a while, so it'll start, the car will then start shutting down various systems if it detects that there's no charge to the car. So we're going to put the battery on a trickle charger, a conditioner, and I've wired my battery up to take the extension for the trickle charger so that it's actually part of the circuit that the BMS monitors. What does that mean in practice? Well, what it means in practice is that I've got one terminal for the extension for my charger on the red terminal, the positive, and then the other negative is on the stud straight into the bodywork here. So with that circuit made, the car can recognize there's a battery in the car, the BMS picks it up, and I can plug the charger into that. So let's do that now. First thing first, put the cover back on. Should say actually, while you've got your car cover off, if you're setting up your trickle charger, just a quick opportunity to check everything's fine. Check your brake fluid, make sure there's no leaves or debris from the autumn in there. You might want to top up your screen washer too if you want to, but mine looks pretty good. So let's get the cover on. And one of the advantages of having the extension for the cable is that you can poke it through the gap which we use to lift this panel out, which is just here. It goes through there, and with that through I can then push that down, find the position it likes to be in, push the two studs in, roll the seal around the front of it so that's in the correct place, and then we've got access to the, I don't adapter there, and now I'm going to feed my extension cable under here through the lower gap where the wiper arm sits. Plug that in. That takes all of 2 seconds. Nice firm click. That's in. We can now shut the bonnet, taking care not to trap anything else. That can be shut properly. As you can see, the cable comes out from there nice and easily. I've got a bit of fabric here made up to allow the cable to run over the wing. That goes down there like that, and I can turn that on, and we have a battery on the trickle charge, on the conditioner. Happy battery, happy car. So let's talk about moisture next, or damp, or generally water where it shouldn't be. Now, my recommendation is, if you've got your car in a garage, as I have, drop the windows just a little bit, doesn't get the whole way down. I learned this lesson the hard way with my last car, a 911, and actually what it is, it doesn't matter, but if you've got the car in the garage, just drop the windows a bit. It'll keep the moisture in the car circulating within the garage as a whole, and that should avoid getting any moisture build up in the cabin. And by the way, you'll know if you've got moisture build up in the cabin because when you first take the car out in the spring, you probably get a lot of condensation on the inside of the glass of the car, pointing to the moisture being caught in the fabric of the cabin over the winter. So get your windows down. The other thing I do as well, I've got in my garage this little white box down here, which is a dehumidifier. So that will suck out a litre or two of water from the air overnight each night. And with the garage door shut, it keeps the relative humidity in the garage relatively low. And in fact, I actually have a little hygrometer up here which tells me at 69 that's not too bad. So my hint and tip is, or hints and tips are, lower the windows slightly, and if it's practical, get yourself a dehumidifier to suck out some of the moisture from the air, so we're not getting too much damp in the fabric of the garage or indeed the car. And if you're worried about frost protection as well, and it can get a little bit chilly in here, I've got a little oil storage heater which I run overnight if it gets really cold. That just keeps 1 or 2 degrees of extra heat in the garage, keeps the temperature above freezing, keeps all my lotions and potions and many other things from freezing up, which is good news. So the combination of the heater, if it's really cold, plus the dehumidifier, generally keeps moisture at bay and keeps the car in a happy place. So we're pretty much there, I think. We've got a nice clean car. It's in the garage, it's been hoovered, it's been dusted. We've got the battery conditioner charging up. We've made provision to manage the moisture in the garage over the coming weeks. The next thing to do, pretty much the final thing to do, is to get the cover on. But actually, before I put the cover on, I'm just going to run through a quick checklist. Is there anything else I need to do? Have I made a list of any jobs that I want to complete on the car over the winter that needs something done to it now? I've emptied the glove box, that's done. I've looked underneath the car. I think we're in a pretty good state. And of course you can come back to the car. It's not putting it away and walking away permanently for 5 or 6 weeks. But I've got a few things I want to do, so I'm just going to check before I get the cover on. But next job, pretty much the final job, is get the cover on. I've done the final little dust off with a soft clean cloth of any dust on the surface. So once the cover's on, it'll keep the dust off the car, which is not a huge issue in my garage. It's more about stopping people from walking down the side of the nice clean car in the coming weeks and brushing against it and putting scratches and bits and pieces. So the car's been cleaned, so the cover can go on, but the cover's largely doing the job of protecting the car rather than keeping it clean. Anyway, enough talk, cover time. Oh, and by the way, this is the point where you'll be pleased that you put your cover away nice and neatly 8 months or so ago. The only thing I can't remember is which way around it goes, but we'll find out very shortly. So that's pretty much that. Car is definitely in the garage, the cover is definitely on. I think I'm almost there. Now, I said at the top of the video, if you have to store your car outside during the winter, you've got a few more challenges. Do jump into the comments now and let me know how you do it. I'm sure there'll be other viewers keen to get hints and tips about outside storage. Otherwise, there's plenty more stuff for me and the Boxster in 2025, so do subscribe to the channel to find out what more is coming up. I'm feeling pretty cold, to use a lovely English expression. It's chuffing freezing out here, so it's time for a cup of tea, which leads me to do a couple of things. Pretty much wrapping up this video: lock the car, lower the garage, say to you thank you for watching, and I'll see you for the next one.